and he's going to house it.
It's amazing. Absolutely amazing.
What's going on, everybody, and welcome to another Angle of Pursuit podcast, your fantasy football, sports betting, and NASCAR home. I'm your host, Kyle Robert. You follow me on Twitter at NotoriousKRO. With me to break down Week 10, our favorite bets, our favorite player props. Brian's got a teaser for you guys. It's Brian Twining. What's up, Brian?
What's up, Kyle? Yeah, and speaking of that teaser, hopefully this week I don't lose 3 of the 4 teased bets. Last week was crazy.
It was not a good Week 9 for you.
No.
I had a very average, very 500 week, which based on Week 7, Week 8 was a slight improvement, unfortunately. But let's trend in the right direction. Let's get this thing going. Before we talk picks, before we talk bets, before we talk props, there's a few things, a few news and notes and that kind of stuff that I want to jump into. First, we'll start in Carolina, where Cam Newton's back. So Sammy Darnold did not go the way, like, it was looking so good when we started the season, and then not so much, and then clearly they felt like PJ Walker was not the option, so they reached out to old Cam, and they're going to bring him in. I'm guessing he doesn't play this weekend, but I mean, I have no idea.
Yeah, they already came out. Matt Rule already said that PJ Walker will start this week. They're going to see if they can ramp Cam up enough to have him active, but it's looking likely he will start next week against Washington, and they didn't give him all that guaranteed money for him to be a backup. So
yeah,
look for Cam to be starting in Carolina sooner rather than later.
As a Team Carolina podcast, as a Team Carolina win total over, maybe potentially make the playoffs in an NFC that's, that 6-7 slots are pretty wide open. How are we feeling about the return of Super Cam and potentially, not feeling the Panthers playoff run?
Well, let me just say from a betting perspective, for those of us who have like futures on the Panthers to make the playoffs, I think this improves their chances. Now, I do think their games become extremely ugly.
Yeah.
From a fantasy perspective, I am running for the hills if I have DJ Moore, and if you haven't already, Robbie Anderson needs to be sent to the trash heap. Like he has zero value now.
Yeah.
Christian McCaffrey, I think we're going to see him become the focal point of the offense once again.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this team is going to try to win games 17-14, 20-17. Like these games are going to be ugly, and they're going to rely on Cam's running and or hopefully get him back to not last year's version of Cam where he was throwing more interceptions than touchdowns. But
I think your call about targeting totals will makes a lot of sense. We'll have to keep an eye on how their totals trend once he becomes a starter, and then obviously in those games where they get a few too many points, they become a little more interesting.
Yes.
Speaking of a little more interesting, we'll head to LA where the glitz and glamour and lights, and apparently the Titans put a little fear into the old Rams, where they felt like they had to go add yet another receiver and signed Odell Beckham. What's your read on this situation from a like football, NFL potential playoff deep run kind of? I mean, because it's fun to talk about how Von Miller and Odell makes sense, from an overhead view, but these are big egos, big personalities going into a locker room that was already full of them. Do they mesh well? Do you feel better about the Rams if you're holding a Super Bowl ticket, if you're holding NFC West and NFC ticket, or does this maybe, I don't want to say desperation, but like when you're a team as good as the Rams and are off to as good as a start, obviously when you can add elite talent like Odell, like Von Miller when they're at their best, you got to do it. But it does worry me from a kind of cohesiveness standpoint.
Yeah, as far as like which way they're trending, like do I think they become, more likely or less likely to win the Super Bowl? I really don't think this changes their chances at all, because like Odell is kind of just like the sprinkle on top of the cupcake.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's going to play a role in this offense, but I mean, they are going to go as Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods go in terms of the way that they like to operate. It's a lot of short passing with them getting all those yak yards. With now Odell becomes that guy where he's running those deeper routes, but
Yeah.
I don't think it changes their outlook much. I think it makes them more dangerous on offense. It'll loosen up boxes. I think we'll see them kind of go away from that 65 to 70% passing percentage and maybe get a little more balanced in offense with teams now having to back out a little bit more because knowing that they actually have a deep threat.
Yeah.
So, I don't think it'll affect their cohesiveness either because both Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods seem to be the kind of guys that are more glue guys. They're not necessarily huge like diva type wide receivers. I think they're about winning, and
For
because they
sure.
got so close a couple years ago, I think they just really want to get a ring.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see kind of how they use Odell and where they sprinkle him in. And this really does give them it's a great insurance policy where if something happens to Woods or something happens to Kupp, Odell is there. He can run. Like obviously, Kupp's so unique to what he does, but if you had to put Odell in where Robert Woods is, I think you can manage. And obviously, Van Jefferson's still there, and they have some pieces, but they have been looking for that deep threat. And if nothing else, he's going to garner attention. He's going to garner the safeties, eyes, and that could open up a lot of stuff. And it'll be fun to see what Sean McVay does. But sometimes when you have too many fancy toys, the daily driver doesn't get the attention it should, and causes some issues. So wanted to hit on that. We will hit our best bets, and we'll work through them. There is a few interesting injuries, few interesting potential misses this week that we should definitely try and work in while we can. But let's jump into it, Brian, and I'll start with my first one. Speaking of those Rams, I'm going to take the San Francisco 49ers at home on Monday Night Football, or I guess Sunday night. What are they playing? Monday Night Football. Yeah, I had that right. This opened at, this is a 4-point spread. If you can get it at 4, I like it. 3.5, I'm okay with it. 3 or less, I don't want any piece. But this is a primetime home dog on national TV. Every time I see these opportunities, I'm all over it. We've seen plenty of times where bad teams beat good teams. It's a little bit of an interesting spot just because the Rams are coming off of that embarrassing loss at home. It could be easy to go, well, the Rams are going to bounce back. Everything will be fine. But I just think this is a great spot game. I think the Niners still have, a lot of what the Titans did last week. I think the Niners can replicate with their front four, with their linebackers, get pressure in the backfield, get Stafford off his spot, and make things really hard for the offense. Now, the Titans were able to kind of turn in a couple defensive turnovers into points and made it really easy on their offense. So we'll see what that looks like. But I just think this is too many points for a division game. Even as with the Rams basically having a full rest playing Monday to Monday.
I agree with you, especially because this is going into a Monday night game. San Francisco is looking to get healthier on the offensive side of the ball. Their defense is still fearsome up in the front seven. So I think that they are able to create enough problems up at the line of scrimmage that kind of keeps them in this game. I think they'll be able to run against the Rams, which has been their weak point this year. I mean, Adrian Peterson scored a touchdown on them. Proof in the pudding right there. But yeah, Monday Night Football going into San Francisco, it'll be interesting to see how they utilize Odell too in this game and see if maybe they try to force it to him because it's sounding like he's going to play, which I think could, create some balls that necessarily shouldn't be thrown in the certain situations. So, San Francisco could be kind of trying to cherry pick on defense for a couple of interceptions. It's hard with these divisional games to bet anybody on the road as more than a field goal favor, especially in the NFC West as we've seen over the years.
Yeah, I just there is a few trends that I don't love, including the Niners have lost 8 straight at home and 1-11 straight up in their past 12. That's not what you're looking for. And maybe I'm jumping on a ticking time bomb that's not the move, but 13-4 in their last 17 Monday night games. Rams are 3-8 against the spread in their last 11 games in San Francisco. So I just think this is a spot game that makes too much sense, and I'm going to hammer the Niners here. Let's talk about your first pick, and that is the Indianapolis Colts minus the 10 versus Jacksonville.
I honestly, there's really not much to say about this. Yes, Jacksonville went out and beat Buffalo last week, but Buffalo's been kind of, just meandering throughout the season because they're so much better than everyone. They seem like they've been complacent the last few weeks. Indianapolis is still fighting for a playoff spot. They have to win every game going forward. This team looks really good right now on both sides of the ball, even with their injuries on defense. Jacksonville's passing offense just really isn't there and capable of taking advantage of teams that are a little, inadequate in defending the pass. So I think Indianapolis controls this game from the get, and they dominate. And this is the performance I expected out of Buffalo last week. We see Indianapolis put forth.
Yeah, no, this is a great spot game. Jacksonville off a big win against the best team or one of the best teams in the AFC. Offensively, they were still a mess, and Indy's defense is getting better each and every week. I think Indy's offense has a much better game. I think Jonathan Taylor runs all over this. I'm 100% in lockstep, and actually, when we go to talk props, I'm going to have to look at the Colts numbers because I think there could be some opportunities there. Before we get on to the next game, let's talk Bills because they're in an interesting spot. They're very compelling. They're 12.5-point favorites against the Jets, who are
It's
terrible.
going down as we speak because Mike White is starting. That's ridiculous, by the way.
In 2021, is this really what we're doing? Mike White is moving lines.
It's sickening to me.
Are the Jets broken? Because not the Jets, the Bills. Because the last 2 weeks, their offenses looked like a train wreck, and maybe it's just because your boy Zach Moss is out and he's completely tanked this offense. But I feel like a monster performance from Josh Allen is coming. This is going to be a great spot for it. But I don't know. I don't know if this offense, I don't know if we're giving this offense too much credit and expecting too much from an offense that just, 3 weeks ago against my Titans, moved the ball up and down the field. You're telling me they can't do the same thing to the Jets?
Yeah, I feel like the Bills have built up enough equity over the last couple years that the line should not be moving in the direction that it is. I know that this is going to be played at, in the Meadowlands, Jets at home. The fans are going to be crazy for the legend Mike White out there, and he's looked pretty good. That said, he hasn't played a defense like Buffalo's, who even in a loss last week, they basically prevented Jacksonville from doing anything on offense. And I'm gonna favor the history of what Buffalo with Josh Allen has been able to do. And I do think, kind of like you, that we see them have that blow up game this week. So for me, I'm happily letting this continue to shrink and getting this as low as possible, which will probably be around that Friday, like tomorrow, when this is released today, or midday Saturday before the big money wagers start coming back in on Buffalo. Yeah. So I think that'll be like the sweet spot right around 11.5, 12, where it's kind of sitting. But if I can get this at 11, that's preferable. But even the Bills, we talked about this when the line first dropped at 13, we still liked it then. So anywhere below that is cake.
Yeah, I'm looking for the Bills team total right now. It's 29.5 over on DraftKings, and the over is getting pounded. If we expect the Bills to score 30 plus points, they're covering that number. The Jets offense has been good, but they haven't. The Bills defense hasn't been the problem.
Exactly.
The offense has been the problem.
The Jets have not played a defense like Buffalo's yet, and this could be the awakening.
I think if you like the Bills, take them on the spread. We're going to talk about this game. because I think New Orleans +3 is absolutely the right side.
Even with Kamara?
So let's talk about it. There's a few issues. First thing, we'll start with Kamara, who's been in a walking boot. If he doesn't play in this game, I would not like it quite as much, but we've ridden the roller coaster with this team all year, no matter who's been on the field. And it's been ugly, and they've lost in situations where we expect them to dominate, and then they've dominated in situations we expected them to get absolutely crushed. What's our expectation at quarterback? Is it Taysom Hill? Is it Trevor Siemian? Is it a mixture of the two?
So that's kind of been one of my focuses this week, is trying to figure out which way Sean Payton is going to go here. Now, if Alvin Kamara winds up missing this game, I think we are going to see a lot more Taysom Hill lining up in the backfield and a S ton of running. This is going to be like old school Miami Dolphins, Ronnie Brown and Cadillac Williams or whoever the hell it was, and them running the Wildcat. Like, it's going to be Taysom Hill, Mark Ingram, just pounding the rock. And this game could easily go the under. I think New Orleans defense, Marshawn Lattimore got his cast removed today, so he no longer has a club. He's actually has his hands. He's going to be able to shut down his side of the field. This game scares me from a total perspective, from a fantasy perspective on both sides of the ball. So I even minus Kamara, which I will say this: if he gets ruled out, look for this line to creep upwards like 4.5, because he is that kind of dynamic player. And I would much rather take it there, thinking that New Orleans is still going to cover, than taking it right now.
Yeah, it's interesting. So if you think Kamara can miss, and you really think the Titans are going to just absolutely crush them, you can get 2.5 pretty much anywhere, which is an amazing
that's
number.
A good bet.
The total opened at 49.5. It's down to 44, 45, depending on where you look, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah.
At this point, more people are betting the over at 44, but worth keeping an eye on. As Brian mentioned, this could be a game where we see lots of Mark Ingram and Adrian Peterson, like it's 2012 and not actually 2021. But here we go. Interesting spot. I think the Saints defense is really good. I don't know what happened last week. The Falcons and Saints always play the weird games, but I'm still going to ride this. I think this is absolutely the right side. I'm a Titans fan. I want my team to win every single game, but for them to go through the gauntlet they've gone through, including winning Buffalo, Kansas City, and the Rams, this makes so much sense for them to slip up against a New Orleans team without Alvin Kamara behind the quarterback,
or without a wide receiver. Of any sake.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. Surprised Odell didn't go there, but I guess it wasn't. It was less about volume and more about having a team.
Well, okay, real quick before we get off that, why the hell would Odell, who was complaining about Baker Mayfield and Eli Manning, want to go to a team that's quarterbacked by Trevor Siemian and or Taysom Hill? Like,
yeah, no, that's fair.
That made zero sense.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Let's talk about the Bucs. Tampa Bay -5. Brian's doing his first half song and dance. Has not gone well the past couple weeks, but
That's okay.
Just talk to me about this one.
Well, neither of those first half bets were teams quarterbacked by Tom Brady, and I don't really care who's playing wide receiver this week for the Buccaneers, whether it's Tom Brady's kids or Rob Gronkowski in a wheelchair. Like, off of a bye week, this team is going to be ultra prepared to come out here and absolutely smash. After all the rest, Tyler Johnson, look for Brashad Perriman if he gets called up to be that deep threat that they haven't really had down the middle of the field. Even Darren Fells, like, he could have a resurgence this week for the Buccaneers. I just think that this Tampa team, regardless of who misses this week, because they're coming off the bye week, they've had that extra week of preparation, is going to come out firing on all cylinders on offense, and they absolutely destroy Washington.
I'm 100% in lockstep with you. I'm on the full game minus the 9. This Washington team is still getting love from what we saw last year, where they were a playoff team and the defense was awesome. And
they should have jumped ship like me about.
This is a team that cannot produce when it gets in close. They can move the ball they want between the 20s, But when it's time to score touchdowns, they have had so many issues. They should have covered multiple weeks in a row. They have had some. They are not doing it. Antonio Gibson's clearly banged up. Heineke's under center. I don't trust this Washington team as far as I can throw them. I think
Tampa Bay is getting healthy on the defensive side of the ball too, mind you. It looks like they're getting Sean Murphy bunting back. Sherman is healthy. He's coming back. I mean, if we're 2021.
And Bruce
we're talking
Arians is clearly trying to get Tom Brady some records because they're just throwing and throwing and throwing. And when they're up, they're throwing. When they're down, they're throwing. They don't really care. So
yeah,
I'm not worried about getting like a 7 or 8 point lead just sitting on it. Like I think they get up big. I think they roll. I think this is a 42-14 kind of game. And I'm gonna be just sitting back and enjoying every second of it. I hate betting big favorites, and I hate betting big favorites,
especially on the road.
But I think this is a great spot. Speaking of great spots against teams that have been inept, Las Vegas Raiders plus 2.5 at home versus the Kansas City Chiefs on Sunday Night Football. I will be taking the money line as well. The Chiefs are broken. They're not playing well. They're having issues both sides of the ball. The Raiders want to run the ball. Josh Jacobs and Kenyon Drake are going to run all over this defense.
And they got snubbed by Odell. Tells you something.
Yeah. So I mean there's a lot going on there too. I think the Raiders get right after an ugly loss against the Giants last week. I think they play much better on Sunday night. I think the Chiefs, ultimately, I think the Chiefs will be fine. I think they'll be a playoff team, and I think they could be a really scary team that comes into Tennessee and then goes into Buffalo and then goes into wherever, and all of a sudden they're in Super Bowl. But I think, I think this is a spot game, home team, prime time. As a dog, give me the Raiders.
Yeah, this is a game right here. I am right there with you. I'm actually leaning towards taking the Raiders on the money line here. They've played Kansas City tough the last few times they've played each other. The addition of Deshaun Jackson will make an immediate impact on this game, with Kansas City liking to play uber aggressive on the defensive side of the ball. Look for Derek Carr to utilize that speed and go to him early in this game to try to hit that big bang play. I think we see Darren Waller get back right this week. He's practicing in full finally. Josh Jacobs is firmly, planted there as a healthy running back in the backfield for the Raiders. Yeah, again, primetime in Vegas, like we saw this early in the year when they beat Baltimore. I think this is a spot where the Raiders surprise the NFL once again and kind of stay in that playoff picture.
Yeah, no, I'm 100% in agreement with you. Talk to me. Oh, this is my pick again. I have more picks because Brian has his teaser and some other props. I'm rolling with Pittsburgh in this spot. I know they didn't look great against the Bears on Monday night. I know they're definitely got lucky to get out of there with a win. They probably should have lost. The ref clearly had had an ulterior motive. It's officiating has gotten really bad.
It's terrible.
Past
the taunting rule is absolutely horrendous.
Well, it's funny though, because like that is a taunting or like certain little things, but then the whole defense can run to the touchdown and sit there and flex and do whatever, and there's no flags there.
There should be an immediate delay a game called when they
just
do that.
Like let everybody have fun. Like it's not the no fun league. Like you can't throw flags and then not throw flags and arbitrarily make decisions. So like just let everybody have fun as long as they're not like throat slashing or like double middle fingering their opponent. I think they should be fine. Like just let them do it.
That would be awesome. What do you mean? They do the Eli Manning on the field.
Yeah, if they're having fun and they're not being assholes to the opposing team, I think let them roll. Like I don't see what the harm is.
Yeah, no. Going back to the Steelers game here. Yeah, it was interesting to watch that because it's almost like they let Chicago back into the game by like
a little Vikings like situation.
Yeah, I almost felt like playing a rookie quarterback was actually the time to do what I always say you shouldn't do, which is play prevent, because he's not really like there yet in terms of trying to defeat complex zone defenses. But if you bring everybody up and you're still bringing pressure and you got man-to-man coverage, like anybody can, any of these quarterbacks are good enough to find the open guy when it's man-to-man. And I feel like that's what Justin Fields was doing and using his legs there, which kind of got Pittsburgh in trouble at the end of this game. Now this week, Jared Goff is not going to be able to run away from their pass rush. Jared Goff does not have an Allen Robinson, a Darnell Mooney on the outside. I mean, Josh Reynolds re-signed, but is he scaring anybody in the Pittsburgh pass defense? I doubt
he
it.
couldn't beat out like Nick Westbrook
Akina.
and some of the guys that the Titans were throwing to. I would say no. I would say not. So
Yeah, I don't. To me, this is one of the most like short lines of the week. This to me should be closer to the Bills 13 as any of them, because in Pittsburgh, like,
yeah, no, I totally agree. I do have one more. I didn't make a graphic for it, but I'm adding your Cowboys to my list.
that's so
Minus the 8.
scary.
I think another week back for Dak. I think another week where everything's gonna look better. And the Falcons, coming off of a huge win against rival New Orleans, they're not good. Like their wins are against garbage. The Giants and the Jets and the Saints is one of their best wins. And
But
like
again,
the
a
Saints,
divisional game, which you can't
right?
take too much
Exactly.
from
Yeah,
those.
even like when crappy Arizona would play an amazing Niners team, Arizona would rise up and get them. It's just
Exactly.
how those Bears and Packers, that kind of stuff. I think Dallas gets right. They're getting Gallup back this week. They're getting healthier on both sides of the ball. I think they absolutely dump truck them and cover this number with ease. That also made my card. Brian, let's talk about your teaser.
All right. So last week was an absolute train wreck, as I took 3 favorites that got teased down, and week 9 just happened to be the week of the dogs. And I mean, I'm a dog person, but I was cowering in the corner like I had just wet the bed, wet the couch, or whatever dog mantra you want to say. So this week I went slightly in a little bit of a different direction, but I'm starting with the Browns here. Currently around 2.5, getting 2.5 points against New England. Even minus the guys in the backfield here, I think that the Browns are probably the better team. Just their defense is playing tremendous. Now, if Myles Garrett misses this game, that will be a huge loss. But on the outside, the Browns are able to defend the pass. New England's not really able to move the ball through the air that efficiently. So I do think that Cleveland can stop them on defense. And then the Browns offense minus Odell is fantastic. Baker Mayfield looks like a completely different quarterback. I think they're able to utilize their tight ends, all those play action to get this. So I teased this from 2.5 to about 8.5. Getting over that touchdown mark is really big here. Going back to Kyle Steelers, it's 8.5 in most places. I think they crush the Lions, but just to play safe, I'm teasing this down to 2.5, depending on what book you're at. And then I'm looking at the Vikings here. This is an interesting spot for me. I'm going out on a limb. I don't know what to make of them, but one thing I will say about Minnesota is they play in close games every single week. So teasing this from the field goal that it's currently at up to 9, or even if it's at 2.5, teasing this up over a touchdown at 8.5, I think just makes too much sense. They seem to be in every single game within 1 score. So I think that's that's probably my safest play in this whole thing, surprisingly. And then going back to that Chiefs Raiders game, I think with Kansas City not really being, that good on offense right now, I think you see them try to get going. They're going to try to push the issue, put some points on the board. The Raiders too are going to be able to move the ball against this Chiefs defense. The total is currently set at around 52. Teasing this down to 46 and taking the over for like a 28-20 or 28-21 finish, I think is is a good spot. So I'm getting the Browns teasing that up to 8.5. Steelers teasing that down to 2.5. Vikings upwards of 8.5, 9, and then taking the over. Chiefs and Raiders teasing that at about 46.
Yeah, no, I think all those make sense. I love the Vikings. I think they make a ton of sense.
That's terrifying though, but
They have one game this season where they've either won or lost by 7 points, by
there you
more than
go.
7
Exactly.
points,
They are this season's
um,
Chargers.
including 4 in a row where they've been within like 4 points. I think they make amazing sense. If you're looking for teaser legs, I think New Orleans makes a ton of sense. If you can get them up to 9 or 10, I think if you can get them a full 10, I like that quite a bit. If you want to go with the full 3, I mean, yeah, and Brian laid out some good ones. I think Tampa makes sense.
And
I
then the
think
Cowboys too. Like
yeah,
if you get the Cowboys as a less than a field goal favorite, I feel like the market kind of overreacted a little bit to last weekend. I mean, it was surprising to see their
I
performance, but
think this is going to be a get back to business week, and teams
yep,
that 2 weeks ago, if you would have felt a certain way about these teams, I think you should definitely go back to those. I think last week
exactly.
was kind of the admiration, not what we should expect going forward.
And two,
Um,
of note with the Falcons, outside of Kyle Pitts and Cordero Patterson, they don't have anybody on offense that scares anybody's defense. So I mean,
yeah.
yes, they have Matt Ryan, but if you can get any semblance of pressure on him, their offense is not going to be that good.
Yeah, so and I think there's a lot of good teaser candidates. I think the Eagles can make a ton of sense. I think teasing the Raiders up, although the Chiefs can. If the Chiefs click, they could beat the Raiders by 30, and then that could be
Yeah,
ugly. So, but I do like taking a bunch of these. I would advise not going crazy. Like, don't go with like an 8-team tease, but like find 5, 6, 7 teams you like, and then build a few teasers and kind of cobble them together different ways. But I think New Orleans makes sense. I think Tampa makes sense. I think the Steelers make sense. I like Brian's call with the Browns, teasing them up to almost 10. Like, like New England's not going to dump truck them like that.
no.
I don't see a situation where that happens. And then,
I mean, Buffalo, even teasing them to below a touchdown right
yep,
now. I mean,
yeah,
now if Buffalo falters against the Jets and this game is played at a close, we may have to reassess where we think Buffalo stands
yeah.
in terms of
No,
AFC
this will
hierarchy.
be if their offense has another struggle again. We'll have to look at it, what's going on there because they have
Yeah.
talent. They have Brian Daboll calling great plays, and he's shown the ability to do that over the past couple of years. Josh Allen, he's been phenomenal. Like there's nothing to really be concerned about. So this will be the test.
Yep.
Um, let's talk some player props, Brian. You got a couple. Lay it on me.
Yeah, well, I'm going back to the well with AJ Dillon. He seems to have taken over that Jamal Williams role. And this time of year, Green Bay is trying to keep their guys healthy. So you're seeing them split the carries from the backfield about 50-50. AJ Dillon surprisingly saw more targets last week, too.
Mm-hmm.
And then, especially whether Aaron Rodgers plays or not, especially if he does, I do think they still lean a little bit more heavy on the run, knowing that Rodgers is probably going to be slightly. How would you say less than 100% in terms of his endurance. So I think they try to keep the ball out of his hands a little bit more than normal. And 41.5, like he's gone over this over half the games this year. I don't understand that call. Like it's still way too low. So I'm smashing that right now. And then going to my Cowboys game, Kyle Pitts, he's really outside of Cordell Patterson. Like I said, he's their biggest receiving threat. I think he's able to take advantage of the Cowboys linebackers who are going to be minus Micah Parsons, who's going to be playing as a down defensive end this week with Randy Gregory going down. So that takes away his speed at defending Pitts. So Pitts over 66.5 yards, I think is something that I'm really liking.
Yeah, I think both of those make a ton of sense. There's a few that I'm looking at this week. It's an interesting spot because we have injuries and question marks, with Aaron Rodgers and Kyler Murray. What's your read on the Cowboys running back situation? I know Zeke's a little banged up. He was able to kind of finish that game, but didn't look great. There's potential that he misses this week. Where is he expected to go in from your perspective?
Yeah, Zeke should be fine to be rolled out in fantasy and prop wise and all that stuff. But like when you look at Tony Pollard, I mean, again, he's very similar to AJ Dillon in terms of he's seeing a consistent amount of touches out of the backfield, especially now if the Cowboys get Michael Gallup back. I think that's going to soften up the boxes even more,
Yep.
which would lend me to think that the Cowboys are able to run
Do the
even
Cowboys
more.
actually throw more though? Because they haven't really been throwing a ton, like in terms, especially in terms of Cooper and like we thought
Yeah,
Gallup goes down, we're going to filter all these targets towards CD and towards Cooper, and that really hasn't
they haven't
happened.
really had a chance to like get rolling on offense. I
Yeah.
feel like their passing game, it really builds on itself as the drives get going. And you see them put together, 4 or 5 plays in a row where it's just boom, 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 chunk down the field. And if they're not able to complete those, it kind of stalls out. So
Yeah, so I'm looking at Tom Brady this week. There's nothing put up yet, so my plan is to tweet stuff out probably, hopefully tomorrow. Once DraftKings gives us actual numbers.
yeah.
But because of all the, Chris Godwin, whether he plays, actually, if Godwin's out and it's like Tyler Johnson and Brashad Perriman, you're going to get a better number on
Yep.
Brady, and I think he's still going to have an absolute monster game. I
Exactly.
also like Josh Allen this week. Like you can take him over 2.5 touchdowns at plus 145. I like that call quite a bit. His passing yards, 284.5. You expect the breakout game against this stanky Jets team. This could absolutely be the week.
Check out Devin Singletary rushing props if those get posted. Anything under like 50 yards, I think will be huge because if Zach Moss misses, those are going to probably go down, go up. And then also, not just that, Buffalo has not run the ball at all, really.
Yeah.
So even though the running backs don't matter in this offense, they have to get some kind of threat there. And against the Jets, this is like the perfect opportunity to do this.
Yeah, but the one thing the Jets do well is slow the run. Jalen Hurts 46.5 for his rushing prop. I like the over there once again. I'm not doing the Patrick Mahomes thing 3 weeks in a row. I really want to, but I can't. I can't do it. Josh Allen 34.5. That's tempting. Um, it will be interesting to see when like the Tampa receivers, like Tyler Johnson receptions and
Yes,
yards could be really
those are going to
fun.
be huge.
In 2 of the 3 games where Antonio Brown didn't play, he saw 6 targets. Um, if he plays and Godwin plays, you might get a real nice number on him, and I could see him being a lot more involved than you'd think. AJ Dillon's over under receptions 8.5 yards, like or receiving yards. I like that a lot. Obviously, there's been a couple games where he saw 4 targets and a couple games where he saw like 1 or 0. So you could get nothing, but I think even if he gets 1 or 2, he could get 3 or 4 yards on both of those
He's
and get you there.
So AJ Dillon has had 8 or more receiving yards in 5 games this year.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's just a bad number.
Yeah.
Unless you expect Aaron Rodgers to come back in FU mode and just throw. But even then, I think Dillon and Jones is a 25.5. I could see him getting involved too. And Jerry Jeudy, 57.5, came back last week, got a ton of targets once again. This guy is being involved even in a game where the Broncos didn't need to throw a ton.
Yeah.
So I think that's good in a matchup with this Eagles defense that can't stop the pass. Like Teddy Bridgewater is in a great spot. Obviously, they're not going to throw like the Chargers and like some of the other teams that we've seen, but I think they could absolutely have a field
And for
day.
and for a guy like Judy too, he's a guy who can take a 10-yard, dig or a quick slant and go for 20, 30 yards in a clip.
Yeah.
So he's a guy when you get those lower numbers for his yards props, he can hit that within 2 receptions.
Yeah, I'm just looking for his. Yeah, DraftKings hasn't hung like half the stuff. Like I'd
There's a
love
lot
to.
of injuries this week, so I
Yep.
think that's probably why we haven't seen a lot of these props
Yep.
drop. They're
Yeah.
waiting
AJ
before they
Dillon
get exposed.
receptions over 1.5. I like that call quite a bit as well. But yeah, I will try and tweet out either Friday or Saturday some of my favorite prop plays because there is some opportunities that I'm looking at, but a lot of the ones that I like potentially haven't popped yet. So as soon as they do, I will tweet them out. But Brian, we talked some bets, we talked some props, we talked some news. There's one thing and one thing only left. What's your best bet for week number 10?
I'm going to be riding with I'm going to play whether or not my wife is giving a baby Carson Wentz-led Colts this week. I think that Indianapolis comes out here and absolutely destroys Jacksonville. Their defense is playing really good right now. Wentz has been playing pretty good. And with T.Y. Hilton returning, they get finally a healthy receiving core for him, along with Jonathan Taylor just absolutely bulldozing people. So I'm going Colts -10 against Jacksonville.
Yep. I'm going to take a big favorite as well and take the Steelers. I think it's a bad number. I think that they should be double-digit favorites. I like the Niners. I like the Saints. I like the Raiders a lot. Those are all in consideration. But the Steelers number, the Steelers line is the one that scares me. That feels like it could go the worst way. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like the Chiefs could score 30 or the Rams could score 30 and make me look real dumb.
I just don't think Detroit being able to score enough.
Yeah. And the Steelers defense is good. Now, do they put the pedal to the metal and do that? But I think they can. I think they'll have opportunities. And I think they have enough talent between Najee and Deontay and Claypool and Freiermuth and all that. So yeah, I'm gonna ride with Pittsburgh in a little bit of a bounce back spot to prove they're a really good team, because that AFC North is really deep, and all those teams are really in consideration. So if you have to win and you have to keep dominating in order to win that division and make sure you're going to get a playoff spot. So for Brian Twining, I'm Kyle Robert, and we'll talk to you guys next time.